Hey, it's Terry Bean. Welcome back to another fun episode of Business Growth Time. Today, for your listening pleasure, we've got Jordan Gross. We're going to be talking about Cloud9, and I think it's going to be an interesting conversation because I'm excited to see what Cloud9 means to Janet, what it means to Jordan, share what it means to me, and then hopefully hear what it means to you all, good listeners. But before we properly introduce Jordan, I got to say hello to the lovely, the talented, the one, the only, the social media goddess herself, Janet E. Johnson, where today the E is going to stand for Everlasting Gobstoppers. Do you remember those candies? Dude, those are
Gobstoppers? Oh, well, yeah, they still exist, don't they?
Yeah, sure. You gotta look in the right spot, but if you do, you can find them, and that's always good. So,
do you have gobstoppers in your office? Because I noticed you looked around the room.
Did gobstoppers come before Willy Wonka, or was it gobstoppers then Willy Wonka then gobstoppers? I don't know.
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
Scratcher.
We'll find out.
Was Willy Wonka a candy manufacturer before it was a movie?
Another great question. I don't think so. I think it may have started after, but I can't say for sure.
Can anybody else name a candy by Willy Wonka that's not gobstoppers?
Well, he had chocolate. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
That's such a good question. No, I can't.
I got runts and bottle caps. So
bottle cap.
Oh, really? I used to love bottle caps.
Willy Wonka time.
That's so funny.
I have no idea why I know that. Just chalk it up as to random useless information.
Exactly. Let's get out to something
good party conversation starter.
Yeah.
That's all right. Yeah, you guys, I'm sure you'll be out hanging out with your friends and your group this weekend and asking them about name 3 types of Willy Wonka candy.
You never know. There's some weird games out there these days where the questions are very obscure. So who knows? Maybe.
True. I opened up Trivia Crack again. I'm not an iPhone user, so I can't do HQ trivia, but I've been doing the Trivia Crack. And, now that we're talking about it, I'm pretty sure there will be a Willy Wonka question. So.
Gotta be. Gotta be. I wouldn't be surprised if the internet hears you talking about it right now and just pops
you can get targeted by candy.
Yep, exactly.
Wait, Pete, you're all busted for it too. I just want you to know. So we'll be sharing screenshots of in the notes for this show. Because we're gonna be hit up. That's so funny. That's so funny. So Jordan Gross. Let me tell you a little bit about our guest, Jordan Gross. Jordan's a Northwestern and Kellogg School of Management graduate, a 2-time startup founder, a TEDx speaker, and a #1 best-selling author. His upcoming book, The Journey to Cloud9, provides new approach to the personal development world by using fictional storytelling to reveal some of life's most meaningful principles. Jordan has been asking hundreds of people around the world how they live their lives on Cloud9, and he can't wait to share this with all of you. So I'm excited, and I told Jordan this, and Janet already knows this, but like the day before Jordan's message came in, Janet and I said, that's it, no more guests, we're done, not interviewing anybody else. But his message came through LinkedIn, and there was something about it that I was like, okay, maybe we don't interview anybody else after this guy. So, and then we've had a couple of great.
We have another one next week. I'm like,
you're funny.
We're not very fickle or rigid, so it's all good. I'm excited. Welcome to the show, Jordan.
I am excited. This Terry and Janet, I've been doing a lot of podcasts, and I wish people could see the podcast faces, but this is the biggest smile I've had before heading into a show that I've done so far. So that was pretty awesome. That's pretty a good way to start. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you for the kind words in the intro, and I can't wait to keep talking about Cloud9 and how it can apply to people, how it can apply to their businesses, and really just get into whatever topics we can dive into.
Well, let's start there, man. So why don't you tell us how you define Cloud9, and then roll into what the genesis of this whole conversation and why you started asking hundreds of people around the globe about it.
Awesome. So I define Cloud9 as basically we have 2 directions that we could take. And I believe that in our lives, we can make choices based off of what society expects of us and what other people expect our life to look like, right? So that's really route one. And that's based on, in my opinion, going through the motions and just kind of being average, being normal, right? But then there's this second route, and it's this deviation from the norm where you can live your cloud nine life by making the decisions and choosing what is most inherent inside of you, right? What's really lighting you up, and making those choices that are more aligned with your heart and your gut and your intuition, right? So that's what I think cloud nine is. And living your cloud nine life is about being cognizant of that second path, that journey that you want to take. So that's how I would define cloud nine. But the cool part about it, like you mentioned, is that that's my definition. And I've been talking to hundreds of people, and nobody else has that definition. Everybody else has a different interpretation as to what cloud nine is. So before I ask you two what your cloud nine life looks like, the Genesis story is kind of cool. And it's especially cool because this is my second book. My first book was this morning routine book called Getting Comfy, Your Morning Guide to Daily Happiness, which came out last year. And I went on a couple podcasts when I did that, and people would be like, so tell us the story. How did this all come to be? And I didn't have a great answer. It just kind of came to be. And I've polished it a little bit. And I like to say now that my aha moment for that was the realization that I didn't need an aha moment. So I had heard people writing books, and I said, okay, I could do this too. But now there's this great story with cloud nine that goes like this. It was Sunday in November, and it was one of those like introspective weekends, and an acquaintance of my friend groups had just passed away. I just finished reading a Mitch Albom book, The Next Person You Meet in Heaven. And whereas on a typical Sunday, we would sit around the TV and watch football and talk about nonsensical guy stuff, this Sunday got kind of deep, right? And we were talking about life and love and death and loss and happiness and all those kinds of topics. And as I was driving home, so that I was in the Lower East Side of New York City, and I live in Midtown. And I was driving home in an Uber on the FDR Expressway, and in the East River, I saw a boat. And the boat happened to be called Cloud Nine. So there I was sitting in the back seat, and normally I am the guy who wants to talk to the Uber driver and sort of get him or her outside of the day-to-day norm of sitting there in silence and just driving people around. But I hadn't said anything at that point. And I made the decision to say, you know what, I really should start a conversation. So I said, oh, look at that boat. Isn't Cloud Nine a cool name for a boat? And he says, oh, yes, very cool. I love that. And I said, what does Cloud Nine mean to you? And this is where everything got started. And he started telling me about the day he got married, the day he had children, the day he moved from his home country to America, the day he made enough money to go back to his home country. He talked about a childlike playfulness, his career accomplishments, right? And the wheels started to turn in my mind saying, there is something here. You know, this cloud nine feeling, yes, it's another way to describe happiness and euphoria, but I think I could do a little bit more, right? So the actual first thing that I did was I drafted this fiction manuscript, and I wrote The Journey to Cloud Nine in the next 5 weeks. I wrote the first draft. But in order to help me with that manuscript, I started talking to people about what Cloud Nine meant to them. And I realized all of these momentous life events that we can have that ultimately lead to this Cloud Nine life. And what it's also turned into is some people responding with, well, it's not only these lifetime events. I have Cloud Nine days. I have Cloud Nine mornings. I have Cloud Nine moments. And that's what it's all turned into. So it's basically the study of happiness and positive psychology in a really fun, digestible matter. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Terry, I'm going to let you add. Terry has nothing to say. I've never seen such a thing.
I figured Ernie wanted to hear something from you, Janet. I was like, damn it, I haven't let her talk all morning. Let's go. Keep your mouth shut, Bean. Come on, you can do it.
No, I want to hear what Terry has to say first. Go ahead.
I think you nailed it in terms of the difference in how everybody comes to what their own Cloud Nine is. And it took you a minute to get to mine, right? And mine is momentary mastery, right? So I find Cloud Nine multiple times a day.
Yes.
whether it's out in the paddleboard like I was an hour or so before we recorded,
Awesome.
or whether it's water skiing or not falling on my face like I did Memorial Day weekend.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
That was horrible. I broke my fall with my face.
Good. Good. Well, it looks fine. It looks fine. For all the listeners, it looks fine.
That's good. Thank you. It's actually, I might have gotten prettier. I'm not really sure. It's so for me, it's really about being present to your present, and the more you can live in this moment, right? Whatever this moment is, that to me is the definition. But I'd love to hear what Jan.
Amazing. Me too.
I go back to what you said in the beginning. You were talking about the comparison of before you even mentioned Cloud9, you were talking about what people expect you to do.
Yeah.
And all three of us are entrepreneurs, and a lot of the audience is entrepreneurs.
Right.
But I know, like, in the beginning of my business, it was just by relatives, not my own family, because they support me no matter what I do, but other relatives, they were, get a job, get the benefits, go after the normalcy. And, I grew up, I have an elementary education degree. I went to school, blah, 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 the normal thing.
Yeah.
And I even did corporate America, and couldn't stand any of it. You know, it was, I actually probably, if my mindset hadn't been changed from a mentor I ran into in my 20s after college, I probably still would have been a teacher and just gone on with my life like normal. You know what I mean? But it opened my eyes to new things. So I think as entrepreneurs and small business owners, whatever you may be, I think we need to do what Terry just said is appreciate what we have. I appreciate that I have to get up in the morning.
Yeah.
And at whatever time I damn well please. And my commute to the office is walking down the stairs.
Yeah.
Now I have to say, yesterday I fell down the stairs.
No.
Did you break your fall with your face?
Good thing you didn't break your fall with your face.
I did not. No, it's my ass, to be honest with you. So anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But normally I get down to the basement just fine.
I'm glad we're having this conversation
today.
This
is awesome.
That doesn't come out otherwise. I would have never heard that Jada went.
Yes. How many? I hope it wasn't too many stairs.
Honestly, I'm in a little pain today, to be honest. It was 7.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord, Jesus, help me. Oh, Lord. I'm having a flashback, Eddie Murphy.
The Cloud9 for me it could have been so much worse. I could have broke my arm. I just have a scratch, and I won't show you the other part.
I could have broke my ass.
R-rated podcast, yeah.
But the bottom, Terry's dying. Oh, God, Terry. But the bottom line is it really, really made me realize, you have to appreciate the things that you have, and it could have been 10 times worse.
Right.
But I think every day we need to look at that. We are in business for ourselves, and we have a lot of freedom with being able to do that.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. And I think the combination of the two descriptions is so important, because I'm being very intentional about not just talking to entrepreneurs, right? And solidifying my opinion of what Cloud9 is, but rather I'm talking to the world that I used to live in: investment bankers, consultants, corporate America CEOs, and they're not going to say, oh, my Cloud9 was when I figured out the freedom for myself. No, their Cloud9 is more in alignment with being appreciative of the moment and realizing that they're doing something for a greater purpose and things like that. So that's been so eye-opening, is that there is such a different interpretation based on the life path that you've chosen for yourself. And I'm not here to judge what life path you've chosen for yourself. Just make sure that the path that you're on is in alignment with where you ultimately want to be, and be intentional about choosing it. Yeah.
So I think you just hit a really interesting point. And you said the life path you've chosen for yourself. And I think the majority of people just go on a life path by default. I think we're all given a life path. I think we have a very natural course of action that we could take, should take. I don't think most people either take the time to go deep enough to figure out what it is, or have the guts or have the risky factor to jump in or lean into it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm totally with you. And for me, my story goes much of what you just said. I started out my life not even considering what I ever wanted to do. I was one of those people who, when I got to college, it was, you don't need to know what you are going to do with your life. And I took that literally. I didn't realize that the phrase actually means you don't need to do what you're going to do with your life now, but this is the time where you kind of start to figure it out.
Exactly.
So I didn't do that. And I was just going through the motions based off of that other side of the Cloud9 life, which was what people around me were telling me to do and what society expected of a 18-year-old kid who got into a pretty good university. And then I had internships in the corporate world, and then I was going to have that kind of life, right? But it wasn't until I became more self-aware of those experiences that I ultimately said, okay, this isn't the path that I'm supposed to take. And then in discovering and understanding what path you're supposed to choose for yourself, it's really hard, and it takes a lot of trial and error. And I had to do things that I thought were going to be my life's purpose, and ultimately I was disappointed to learn that it wasn't. But that's when you take from the experiences what are the key components that ultimately lead to what you're supposed to do, and that's how I've gotten to where I am now. It's a combination of all the experiences that I've had have led me to where I am right now.
So would you say you should, here's another thing with the Cloud9. So you look at your life and you look at, this was something that I felt like Terry just used the example of, he was paddleboarding, and he loves going out there in the morning. That kind of is your Cloud9 moment of your day. So should you be looking at these things and look anyway?
One of them.
I'm sure that there's other moments too, but should you be looking
if that's
at your
the best moment of my day, I'm doing something very wrong. Listen, it's a great start to the day. Don't get me wrong. I love it. But that's like foundational expectation for me, right?
Yeah, exactly. But you're aware, and if you're aware of what gives you that Cloud9, should you be focusing more on doing more goals to get towards that Cloud9 too? Like for instance, like my trip to Egypt with Cloud9. I kept saying, pinch myself every day that I'm here. You know what I mean? So that was Cloud9. So now I'm like, okay, what can I do to get me to have that experience again?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, totally. And so in regard to the Cloud9 day in and of itself and having Cloud9 moments, I like to look at it like this. Right before I turn off my reading light and go to bed, I think about my day and I say, okay, was this a Cloud9 day? And a Cloud9 day is composed of different Cloud9 moments. So sure, Terry's Cloud9 moment to start his day was out there on the paddleboard, but that wasn't his peak euphoria. That was just a part of it. Right? So it's about thinking about that one moment as a part of the Cloud9 day and ultimately this Cloud9 life that you're constantly living and enjoying. But then it's also about what other moments throughout my day did I have to continue to look forward to, so that each part of my day, even if I'm in the most dire circumstances, even if I think this is the crappiest day that I'm ever having, do I have something at 8 p.m. dinner with my family where I know I have another Cloud9 moment to look forward to, right? Do I have a 9 o'clock open up my book and read for an hour? Is that another Cloud9 moment for me, right? So when you're finally finishing that day, you could say, okay, here I did this, and this, and all of these things added up to my Cloud9 day. And then the more Cloud9 days you have, obviously the more Cloud9 type life you can have.
Got it.
This is awesome, man. This is I used the phrase momentary mastery the other day, right? And so I've said for years, I haven't had a bad day since like 2006.
Awesome.
Right? Like and I've had parents die, I've had foreclosures, I've had business fall the fuck apart. All of it, right? All of it. It's all and whatever it's been.
Yeah.
But because I'm so present to what's going on, right? Because I recognize that life is really not a series of days, but is a series of moments,
Right.
right? If you have more good moments than bad, and if you allow yourself to express whatever that emotion, whatever that feeling is fully in the present, right?
Yeah.
If I'm mad, I'm mad. If I'm sad, I'm sad. If I'm glad, I'm glad, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, I'm always grateful for whatever it is that's going on, and you experience it fully. And, if you can do that, and you can live a fantastic life and be pretty damn happy regardless of what the situation is, if you allow yourself to be. They're all good days if you allow them to be.
Totally. And you both mentioned gratitude as part of your Cloud9, right? And gratitude is becoming one of those cliches, but it's one of those cliches that works. It really does. You think about, after podcast interviews that I've been doing, I'm writing recommendations for people and showing my appreciation for, both of you, the hosts of the show, right? And, it's just something where it feels so good to help. It's never not going to feel good to be grateful for something, right? So the fact that you two are so aware of how this impacts your day and ultimately on your path to leading your Cloud9 life I'm so glad that we're chatting because you guys get it, that's awesome.
So it's being aware. A lot of it is just being aware instead of, and like Terry talked about, focusing on the positives instead of focusing on the negatives too.
Oh, 100%. It's all rooted in positive psychology and what ultimately leads to the most meaningful and fulfilling style of life. And what I believe that the awareness brings and that sense of gratitude is a form of perspective, right? So that no matter the situation you're in, you're saying, okay, here I am right now, but it could be this, but it could be that, right? It's that phrase, it always could be worse. And for somebody else, it is worse. So for me, it's very simple, but it's an easy phrase that I always say, but I always just like to say it. Everything's going to be okay. Yeah. It's just going to be all right, and it's so easy to say, but the more you say it, the more you actually believe it. Right. So.
And I see, back to my fall, I kept saying yesterday, ow, ow, oh, but I kept saying it could be worse. It could be so much worse. I went biking still. I still went, and exercised like normal. Yeah. So, it could, and if I didn't keep saying that to myself, I probably would have just curled up in bed and thought, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So because you're in pain, so I think everything you look at, you have to look at what could it have, it could be worse.
Yes. And if I could make a quick translation over to the business world, because we haven't even talked about business yet, it's once you develop that mindset of it could be worse, when you face setback, when you face challenge, when you face failure, that allows you to get started on fixing the problem so much quicker than if you were to say, this is the worst thing that can happen to us. Then you harp on the negative, and you are so delayed in getting things back to where they're supposed to be. So that's what the mindset ultimately does for you. That's what believing that you're living the Cloud9 life ultimately does for you, is it puts you back on the path much quicker than you ever could.
I love it. So an example of that is I just did a product launch, and it was not a huge product launch, but it was for a group coaching program. And I had 0 sign up, 0. Okay. But I got full service clients from it. So instead they upgraded to a bigger thing. So it wasn't, oh no, I got no clients into this group coaching program. It was, it led to something else.
Exactly.
And there's always something to be able to lead people to and fix things. And you got to learn from your mistakes. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. It's all
especially
framing.
Business.
It's all framing. And the more positive you can frame it, the more quickly you can take action.
Love it. It really is, right? So it's easier to start from a place of positivity and move forward than it is to start in a place mired in the muck and move forward, right? Because you're stuck. Yes. I love that idea. I love that as a grounding piece, right? It's like, wait a second, how much worse could this really be? My kid's at urgent care right now because she twisted up her knee last night at cheerleading. You know, in fact, my wife called me at 9:30 last night and said, "What's your plan for tomorrow?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Well, I got this podcast and I got to go do this presentation."
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, "But why are you asking?" She don't normally ask. She's like, "Well, one of us has to take the kid to the emergency room." And I'm like, "Well, if it's an emergency, why are we talking about it being tomorrow?"
Right.
That's not an emergency.
First and foremost, yeah.
Right? Let's call it what it is.
Right.
But ultimately, that's what's going on. But it could be worse, right?
Right.
She didn't have to go last night. She got to go this morning, so It's not like dire pain, and
right.
But it's crazy. Everything's like on scale, and I love the word you used earlier, perspective.
Yeah.
Right, and I think we all need to do a better job of keeping things in perspective.
Yeah.
And probably raising the vibration of what we expect our perspectives to be, because that ends up being important too.
Yeah.
So you are on a crazy tear of a mission to do podcasts and be on shows. I talk about, we don't date these things, but we don't really like physically date them, but it's the end of May, right? It's May 31st right now.
Yeah.
And on May 1st, you decided to start a mission to record 90 podcasts. You've done 37 so far, right? So more than one a day, which is crazy. So walk us through the vision of that, the journey that's been there, and then kind of how you've gone about the execution, because the execution seems almost flawless.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, for me, a common theme that comes up is everything I do is based off of relationships. It's based off of people who I look up to. It's based off of people who I would like to emulate. So one of my big inspirations is a guy named Hal Elrod, and he wrote the book, The Miracle Morning. And The Miracle Morning came out in 2011-ish. I think first year it sold, I don't know, like maybe 1,000 copies, which is great. And then what Hal said is he went on podcasts and he had these conversations with people that he would want to have on an everyday basis, that he was having on an everyday basis, but they just so happened to be broadcast for more people to listen to, right? I mean, you made a joke at the beginning, Terry, where you just want to turn on the recording right at the beginning because it's these authentic conversations, and that's how I view podcasts. It's people who are going deep on topics, and other people get a chance to listen, right? So you went on all these podcasts, and fast forward 8 years later, and Hal sold over 2 million copies of The Miracle Morning, and he attributes a large part of his success to going on podcasts. Yes. So using that methodology, and I've actually had the fortunate opportunity to talk to Hal a good amount in the last year. He said, start going on podcasts and really act as if your book was already out there, right? And actually a guy named Ori Brofman gave me that advice, but act as if your book was already out there. The Journey to Cloud 9 won't be out for another 6 months, but I'm here acting as if my book is already out there because I want people to know about what it is. And I think having these conversations on podcasts is a great way to do so. So that was a little bit as to why I chose podcasts. The rest of the story is that it was like the end of March, and I'm a person who, when I have an idea, I just sort of go after it, right? So, but in doing all of this self-help and personal growth and development and trying to start a brand last year, I realized that sometimes that doesn't always work. So I hit the brakes a little bit and I said, how about I spend April doing outreach and publicize that May 1st to July 31st will be the 90 days that I have to do the 90 podcasts. So what I did in April was on April 1st, I went on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn has been a platform where I've been trying to grow, and I have a lot of relationships on there and a pretty nice presence. So I went on LinkedIn and I typed in podcast host. And guess how many people on all of LinkedIn have that title, podcast host?
273,419.
Double it.
Damn.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Yeah, 546,000 people came up, right? Wow. And maybe there's a little bit of error in there because they filtered by the words podcast and host. So if anybody says that they were on a podcast but whatever. So then I filtered by my first connections, and I think it came up to like 430 something. So what I did was I took that 430 something people, I exported it into an Excel document, and then I got started. And about 10 people a day in the month of April, I would reach out with a very personalized message, right? So it was about doing my research beforehand and saying, okay, here's this podcast that I'm going on, and there's 131 episodes. So I want to make sure that I make note of that, and here's the message that they're trying to show. So how can my message align to their message, and what can I bring to their listeners, right? So it's coming from a place of authenticity, a place of value. And Janet, you actually asked me in the beginning, did I use a service for this? And I'm so glad I didn't. I typed out. So I'll be fully transparent. I did copy and paste that I was on this 90 podcast and 90-day mission.
Sure.
Because I think that message is universal. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to show people the grit and determination it takes to set a really lofty expectation and really build momentum around it. So that's what I copied and pasted. But every other message had the first and third paragraphs of personalization, right? And I think I told you guys I have like a pretty nice success rate. I've reached out to about 200 people, and I have almost 65 interviews booked at this point. So the appreciation from the people that I was reaching out to, where it didn't just feel like one of these, hey, I want to be on your podcast and that's it. I think maybe that has to do with why I'm on this nice path right now. So that's what I'm doing. And it has been such a phenomenal experience, and I have learned so much, and I get to make these kinds of great relationships, have these great kinds of conversations, and each one is an opportunity to give people an understanding of how they can better live their lives, right? There's nothing salesy about it. There's nothing gimmicky about it. It's all with this authentic message of here's what I believe, here's what the host believe, and here's what other people who I've talked to believe. And this is what I want you to start believing, or at least attempt to start believing.
Awesome. Yeah, I think this is great. I mean, a lot of lessons there, a lot of different lessons there for, the whole podcasting thing. I think it's great that you're doing it all yourself. I think,
appreciate it.
I think it's podcasting, getting as a guest on podcasts. Yeah. Huge too. So that's, something people need to take away from that too, if they're looking to, especially a book, like you said, a book, grow a brand. Tell us about your book, because it's not out for a while.
Yeah.
But do you have
the show may be out before then, though.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
We're a little ways ahead, but tell us about where they could people could sign up for. Maybe you have an opt-in so that they can get on the list so that they know.
Yes. So the book can be found at journeytocloud9.com, and that's all spelled out, journeytocloud9.com. And there's info on the book, but like you said, 6 months from now, it'll be out and ready to go. There is an opt-in where if you throw your email in there, every Tuesday and Thursday, I send a 90-second clip of a conversation that I had with somebody where they describe their Cloud9 moment. And that's it. And then when the book comes a little bit closer, you'll obviously be a part of the process. Maybe I'll send out cover designs or sample chapters and things like that. But yeah, that's where to be. And everything about me, about Journey to Cloud9, about the last book I wrote, about this, I do a little bit of coaching for helping people find their Cloud9, is all on that website. So that's where to find me. And then the last thing is that the book is a work of fiction. And the reason why I wanted to do that is very in line with my whole mentality, is it's about deviating from the norm, right? So here I am obviously following a different path, but the path that people like myself are taking and writing these kinds of books is very self-help and very almost authoritative. So in the last year and a half of writing that kind of book, some of the pushback I got was, I don't think personal growth is for me because I don't want anybody telling me what to do, right? So I wanted to present a self-help, almost like a parable or an allegory, in which I tell a story with the principles that I have understood and learned from talking to people, but I wanted to tell it in a different language through storytelling. So people who don't necessarily read self-help are able to pick up this work of fiction that they can invest in the characters and see, I'm a lot like this person, or I'm a lot like the protagonist, or, I need to make a change in my life because this is what happened to this guy. So that's the reason why it's fiction, even though there's an overarching self-help type of.
It comes kind of from real, but it's fiction character type thing. Okay.
Exactly.
Got it.
That's kind of how The Go-Giver by Bob Burg and John David Mann was written.
I can't believe you just said that, because I got in touch with Bob Burg on LinkedIn, and now we're chatting, and I just listened to he and his agent speak about how they made this concept of the Go-Giver, which is a parable, into such an actionable thing for people's lives. So that's such a weird, there have been so many weird coincidences in this podcast journey. When I was writing my book, it's like, I can't even fathom it. It's really crazy.
Terry, do you know what show he was on our show at one point?
He was?
Yeah, probably 100 episodes ago.
Way in the beginning.
I didn't even see that. Wow.
I've known Bob for 20 years.
Wow.
Super, super amazing guy. Super, like, he wrote a book
phenomenal.
In the mid 90s, early 90s called Winning Without Intimidation, which is a kind of like one of the best communication books I've ever read. One of the most important reads in my business career.
Wow.
I was a young 25-year-old guy and happened to be in an audience at one of his early talks.
Yeah.
And so we became friends, and I've hosted him speaking here in Detroit a couple of times. And
unreal.
Super cool dude.
That's
super
amazing.
Cool.
Yeah.
I had coffee with him in Florida when I was down there, because why would you not?
Insane. That's perfect though. And that all comes from, a relationship that you made. Like I said, that's the theme. It's about this genuine and authentic connection of adding value to one another.
I have to ask one question, because while you were talking kind of about the journey of connecting with people, I went to read the email you sent us, right? That you sent me.
Yeah.
And so we connected in February.
Yes.
You reached out about the show on May 10th. But in your profile on LinkedIn, the word multipotentialite must be there, because there's a comment from me going, I love this word, multipotentialite. So let's talk about that for half a second before we wrap up.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you know it, Janet? No? Okay. So I will send you guys the TEDx talk where the speaker tells the story about where this word developed and how it sort of blossomed, right? But I think a multipotentialite is such a great word to talk about, especially in the conversation that we've had today, because it describes these people who are not afraid to explore their curiosities and not go down any one traditional path. So put very simply, a multipotentialite is somebody who has had a lot of interests and has not been afraid to explore those interests. And what I love so much about the TEDx talk is she talks about when she was a kid, she was asked what she wanted to be when she grew up. And she said one of the standard answers, like a teacher or something. And then she thought, the adult thought that the conversation was over, but she said, I want to be a teacher. And the kid said, I want to be a teacher. But I also want to be an astronaut, and I also want to be a singer, and I also want to be a dancer, and I also maybe want to have a finance job. Like, obviously, as a kid, I don't know what she said, but she basically said, instead of asking kids as adults, what do you want to be when you grow up, we should really focus on, okay, what else do you want to be when you grow up, right? So you don't have to be glued to a particular path, right? And being a multipotentialite allows for this exploration process where ultimately having more experiences will give you a sense of what you do like, what you don't like, and finally discover that one true thing that is in alignment with your purpose, with your ultimate meaning, with what's going to make you most fulfilled.
I absolutely love it.
Sense.
Yeah, it's a cool word. I don't know if it's in the dictionary or not. The little red line on Microsoft Word definitely comes up. So I don't think it's the word yet.
Yeah.
That's great.
Microsoft Word.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. All right, man. So time to wrap. Where do they find you? I know you gave the website for the book. Yeah. What's your platform of choice? Where should folks connect with you? What's up with that?
Yeah, so journeytocloud9.com and also LinkedIn. And then on both of those platforms, my email, I'm pretty sure my phone number is all over the internet somewhere. And I have one of those OCDs where I cannot have a certain number of messages in my inbox or email. And I also love to respond to people. So I answer everything. So a text message, a phone call, a FaceTime, all the way down to the emails, the LinkedIn messages. Please reach out. I love to talk, and I'd be happy to answer.
You're a cool dude, man.
Very cool.
Appreciate
awesome.
it.
Well, where do they find us, Janet?
All our past episodes at businessgrowthtime.com/podcasts. And we have a Facebook group you can find at businessgrowthtime.xyz. Takes you directly to the Facebook group. So that's it. Thank you so much, Jordan. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you guys. This was so fun, really. Thank you so much.